Salutations, warriors! It's been a little while since I've talked about CBT techniques. If you aren't familiar with CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, it's a fantastic approach to literally changing the way we think. I'm not going to get deep into what CBT is. I'm going to stay focused on a few CBT tools that you can add to your bipolar toolbox. Please remember that I am not a doctor or a medical professional. However, I live with severe mental illness every day of my life. I speak from a place of lived experience, not just a textbook. That makes a big difference sometimes. So there's a lot of CBT techniques out there, which is great. It makes it easier to find something that works for you. The few I'm going to share today are ones that I personally have found useful. I'd like to thank author and speaker Mark Tyrell for inspiring this video. Without further ado, let's get right to the good stuff. The first CBT tool is to focus on how your feelings will change. Feelings are fluid. They don't stay the same forever. I can't even remember what I was upset about a year ago. Let's say you're angry, anxious, or a little depressed. Take a few minutes and think about how you'll feel once the nasty feelings go away. If you're a journalist, writing things down can be very helpful. The process of writing will slow down your thoughts, so it's like a double benefit. Let's say your spouse, boss, or friend said something that upset you. You can't stop dwelling on it, and it starts wearing on your emotions. Instead, you can write, think, or say something like, "I'm feeling upset right now. I'm angry. I've been angry before, and it never lasts forever. When these feelings change, I'm going to feel calm, clear-headed, and peaceful again." Say or write that last sentence a few times. I'm going to feel calm, clear-headed, and peaceful again. After that, we move to the next phase. Imagine what the first signs will be when you start to feel better. Your shoulders relax, your breathing slows down, your mind isn't fixated on what upset you. You start to feel a sense of forgiveness towards self or others. If you can write this stuff down, even better. Now that you've put some work into reframing those unhealthy thoughts or feelings, do a personal check-in and see if you feel any calmer. If not, give it a try just one more time. Feelings always change. Remembering that alone is useful. Let's move on to the second CBT tool. Chew it over and act normal. I found a wonderful quote from Mark Tyrell which states, "Anxiety is a survival response, not an illness, but it's a response that can go wrong, sometimes to the point that it hinders rather than helps. Like a guard dog that feels like it's helping, even as it bites the leg of the friendly mailman. Your anxiety response kicks in because it senses a threat, even though that perceived threat may not actually be real. One way to train your anxiety to be selective and behave is to give it feedback, to let it know, 'Thanks, but you're not needed right now.'" End quote. Anxiety is highly attached to the actions we take. If we yell, tense up, or take it out on someone else, the anxiety starts to burn. It feeds it. So we have to trick our minds and body a little bit. We have to do things that we normally would not during a fight or flight response. Open up your body posture. Take some slow breaths. Quiet your speech. Force yourself to smile. Chew some gum or imagine that you are, to salivate a little bit. These are all things that you wouldn't do during a legitimate threat. The goal here is to change the feedback to our fight or flight brain, also known as our sympathetic nervous system. By consciously behaving in these new ways, we're sending messages to our brain like, "Hey, if it were a real threat, I wouldn't be smiling, talking quieter, or focusing on my breath. Things must not be so bad after all." We can literally create new neural pathways in our brain, new ways of responding to threats, but it takes time. I have 43 years of responding to life circumstances in certain negative ways. It's taken me time to change my physiological and emotional responses to life. It's so worth it though. It's about enhancing the quality of the rest of my life. Now for CBT tool number 3, put your thoughts on trial. When we're anxious about something, it usually stems from the fear of some consequence. So what are the consequences? That's the first golden question. Let's say you started a new job and you're super anxious about it. So what are the consequences? I'm afraid of meeting new people. What's the consequence of that? My coworkers might not like me. So what's the consequence of that? I'll feel upset. Consequence of that, I'll feel like I'm unlikable. It goes on, right? Eventually, we need to switch gears and ask the second golden question. So how will I deal with that? Switch your thinking from consequences to the pros we know to be true. It's like drawing a line down the center of a piece of paper and then writing the pros and cons on each side. When your brain says a con like, people won't like me, you can immediately add a pro of, I have plenty of friends who like me, or I typically enjoy meeting new people. If you can, try to find 2 pros to each con. This will help offset the unbalance between positive and stinkin' thinking. It might sound trivial, but you're reprogramming your brain each time you practice this. You're putting your thoughts on trial, challenging them, and sorting out the bullshit from the helpful. With enough practice, you can eventually come up with a pro for any consequence. You'll be able to go from, they'll probably just fire me, to, even if they did, I'm still going to thrive. That is the beginning of your anxiety diminishing. That's CBT. Give it a try. Tell your brain that there's nothing to report here, stand down, there's no threat. Please remember, I'm not a medical professional, and I'm not affiliated with author Mark Turow. I'm simply giving credit where it's due. One of my goals with this channel is to share tools, techniques, and tips that have helped me to live a more peaceful life. That's it. I'm a huge fan of CBT and will probably continue to share techniques on this channel, so stop by again soon. If you're inclined, join the conversation in the comments. I learned so much from listening to the community. If there's a CBT technique that you love, share it with the rest of us. I look forward to hearing from you. Take extra good care of yourselves, and I'll be back here soon with more Polar Warrior videos. Stay well.